There is a stereotype in the financial services industry of a white, male, middle-aged man, usually in a suit, and it is this person who is successful in the sector. And if you look like anything other than that, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. How does an industry with such a deeply ingrained stereotype change its face, change the workforce of the future?
Consistently, someone like me sticks out a mile because it is typically white, it is typically male, so it's really, really difficult to kind of like understand where you fit. I think when I look around the offices of loads of organisations within the sector, we see that stereotype in force. But when we step outside of our offices and go and take our lunch, we see the beautiful demographic of the City of London that we work in. And what's really, really important, I think, is that we bring that demographic back into the office so we can be really relevant to our customers, because the people outside are the people that we're trying to serve, and it's really important that we look like it. We have seen organisations want to put new starters, new recruits into the uniform of the organisation and wear the brand. But I think we need to progress our thinking. So rather than wear the uniform of the organisation, it's like, well, here's a load of accessories. Of course, I would use this analogy, wouldn't I? But, you know, wear the corporate hat today, scarf, bag, shoes, wear the full suit, the dress, the jacket. So you can pick it up and put it down, because you need to be you, and you can wear the organisation in a way that works for you, so you don't all look homogeneous, but you can see that you're all connected and work for the same organisation.
So this idea of hiring in your own image, it's going to be problematic going forward, simply because as we look at a new generation coming through, the millennials, the Generation Z, they are arguably going to want someone that looks like them to give them advice. And equally, if you're an employee working in a company, you want to be able to look up to somebody who has been in your shoes and can support you a little bit more with the challenges you might have.
It's not just financial services or the asset management industry, it's actually quite a number of industries that the youth of today are looking at and saying, actually, this just isn't me. I suppose a really good example of how self-perpetuating this is. There was a lady who I was speaking to who's working reporting in the asset management industry, and she was effectively saying that she got a good degree, a very quantitative degree, economics at Redbrick University, and she's really passionate about investment. But she said that when she looked on her investment floor, even if a job became available, even though she really wants to do an investment job, she wouldn't apply because nobody looks or sounds like her. So that just tells you how self-perpetuating this is. Like, you know, that actually people who would normally want to take a job are actually refusing to do so because they don't see people who look and sound like them. There is this issue around, do they belong at the companies they work at? Do they feel a belonging when they sit on investment floors and distribution floors, etc., etc.? And so the analogy is diversity is being, and it's a very famous analogy, diversity is being invited to the dance, inclusion is being allowed to dance, and belonging is being able to dance in your own way. And it seems that a lot of young people, particularly diverse talent, can't be themselves at work. And I think we have to really address that.
It's very difficult to address. How would you suggest we look at that as an industry?
There's actually a lot of diversity in the broader businesses, but they're not the shop window. Yeah. There are a lot of roles within asset management and financial services, financial advice, that are doing a good thing, but they're not what people see when they see the organisation. And like everybody around this table is in a corporate role doing something good or adding something on to make their role fulfilling. And I think that having more of a shop window basically of that is going to help people feel like they belong, and then that will perpetuate. They'll see more people like them, or see people that aren't like them and not be bothered about that. Because I think that's really stark. Somebody wouldn't go for a job because they wouldn't fit in, and actually kind of want people who don't fit in to think a bit differently.
I think being a role model or helping juniors by explaining to them that the paths that we've been on are actually really important. So as a fund manager, you know, I as a black fund manager, there's very few of us around, and you know, I suppose over the course of my career, I've been, you know, told, I've been mistaken as a taxi driver, a security guard, a toilet janitor even, a tech person at a conference. The list goes on and on and on. But actually having somebody who's experienced those things and been able to jump over those hurdles is actually really important. So actually I think to actually address stereotypes overall, actually what you need is just greater representation. There's only 13 that I can count black fund managers in the city. So it's actually very difficult for somebody to associate a black person with being a fund manager. So I think that's really important. The greater the representation, then all of a sudden some of these stereotypes will start to fall away.
People look at me and say, so you run a team? Yeah. Well, how big's the team? It's like this disbelief that I can actually be a senior leader within an organisation. And it's just great when they think, oh, wow, well, I could do that. Yes, you can. Brilliant. If it's just one person that gives you that feedback, I've done my job.
Absolutely. A lot of this stems back to confidence, doesn't it? It's confidence at every stage, confidence with talking to students at school, universities, returning mothers into the workplace. Is if we can actually focus on building skills and resilience and confidence, then actually we won't lose a large proportion of women out of the industry, because when they go and have a family, they've got the confidence to have those conversations with their managers that I want to return, but I need you to support me in a flexible environment, that I could maybe work 8 till 3 or work 4 days rather than 5, or just have those conversations. But I think sometimes there's this kind of belief that I'm maybe frightened to have that conversation because maybe my manager is a man and he won't understand how I'm feeling. So I think we definitely need to explore and encourage more of those conversations to be happening at all levels, to just increase our own confidence to have those conversations. It's this kind of affinity bias, isn't it? Because we relate to people in similar situations, or like-minded people. So if I was a 30-year-old woman who's just had kids and I'm looking about, well, what do I go back into now? I want to go back into the workplace. To have a conversation with a woman who's maybe gone through a similar experience as myself is really reaffirming and reassuring.
To change that, it's not going to be a quick job. It's really an intergenerational change, isn't it?
It'll definitely take a generation.
Yeah.
If you have a graduate scheme or an entry-level scheme, I don't think there's any excuse for the slate not to be diverse. If you have a diverse slate at the base, then they can grow into their company and so on and so forth.
And seeing people, there's a big piece around seeing is believing, if I've seen her do it, him do it, then maybe I can do it as well. And when you, back to Justin's point around role models, if you don't see many black male fund managers, it's not a very commonly trodden path, and think, do I want to go that way? So when you see those people being successful, and then you think, I can do that as well, it's a very, very difficult position when you take the believing is seeing, because that's all you, and you've just got to really run hard at your goal and your vision, which I think everyone here on the panel's done, as well as a load of other people. But it's helpful when there's someone else that you can think, I'm chasing that.
Absolutely, and then having that ambition and drive to be able to follow that.
There will be people with the skills requisite to running a fund. In another industry, and it maybe particularly with, say, equity funds, asking the right questions of the managers of the companies they're looking to buy shares in, that doesn't necessarily need a completely economics-based background. But at the moment, we're going to have to wait for the people with the inherent skill and the knowledge to come up. That's a long wait.
Well, it's not just for them to have the inherent skill to come up, it's for the leadership to look through and see that there's talent, irrespective of what package it comes in, and pull it up, because there are plenty of people out there that have got the skill where it can come up.
And redeploy the skill or notice it. So I had a colleague who came back from maternity leave, and since having met her, she's so much more assertive, and she just makes decisions much quicker because she's like, I haven't got time, and much more organised, and actually redeploying that skill and recognising it and going, that would be good over there. That takes leadership, but also quite joined up leadership to kind of know in different business areas.
I don't think the onus has to only be on that. I think other people that do conform to the investment norms in terms of how they look can also really help people and give them the platform. Holly Mackay, my CEO, she quite early on decided to start mentoring me, and that was really powerful. And we have very different experiences. She's Oxford educated, she comes from a different background. I could still learn from her experiences because she saw the bits that she could look and see sort of my talents or my or what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, and she could see how she could use her experiences to also help me, even though it might not be completely relatable.
And that's
It's like
so
sharing your
important.
platform.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be just your role model. It's somebody that shows you support.
And I think as an industry, we're kind of all a bit obsessed with competence, and you're kind of picking from that pool of people who have experience and are competent at that job. And skills come from different places, and there is also commercially, with diversity and recruiting young talent, there is a supply and demand challenge in that there aren't that many junior roles relative to kind of more senior roles. And then you're kind of picking from a pool as you go more senior of people who are already competent. I personally think you can learn anything. Like, finance isn't like rocket science. You can learn it, but the companies need to have the facility to train. And in terms of bringing in a wider pool at all levels, that means being able to take people from other industries. And at the moment, I feel like somebody from another industry who, financial advice is probably a really good example, their skills would really lend itself to that, but they're not qualified or they're not experienced in that.
In trying to constantly prove competence, we then reinforce the stereotypes that people have about the industry, the lack of trust or opacity, that I don't understand it, someone's taking advantage of me. And I think that's removing that and removing the need to try to prove competence would help a lot.
But we need to make sure that when we bring in this diverse talent that have creative and new thinking that can help us be relevant to our customers, we don't dilute that talent. So we don't just say, oh, you're great because you're a bit different and we need something like that. And we bring them into an organisation and make sure they institutionalise themselves so they are wearing the brand of the organisation. So it's a really difficult balance that we've got to manage, but we absolutely need to manage that.